I go to a lot of estate sales and pick things up that have meaning, memory to me, and also like rare items, rare valuable things. And so does my mom and her boyfriend. And so one of the estate sales that they went to, and I didn't get to go to this one, was the estate sale of Lester Maddox. And Lester Maddox was a famous politician during the Civil Rights era, and he ran on a pretty much segregationist platform, and he owned a whites-only restaurant. And a lot of people thought he was racist when he was running for office. But when he got into office in Georgia, he, for the first time ever, gave a lot of blacks appointed positions in government. And up until then, they hadn't had any positions in government. They didn't have any representation for the tax dollars that were being pulled from them. And Lester Maddox put them in positions where they could actually disperse tax money. So he kind of ran on somewhat of a questionable racist platform, but then when he got into office, he did more for the blacks than anybody had done, probably since the ending of slavery. So I thought that was kind of like, had some synchronicity to the story. Just when it comes to what politicians tell you and what politicians actually do. Because most of my life, I was born in 1976. I never felt that the vast majority of politicians were ever being genuine with me. They just tell me what I would want to hear, and then when they got into office, they would just do something completely different. So when my mom and her boyfriend Kevin went to Lester Maddox's estate sale, they found a number of really cool, significant artifacts. One of them was this here picture of the Apollo 17 moon landing. Now the Apollo 17 moon landing, this is made out to the Georgia Senate and to, I kind of let some rain get on there, so I kind of messed it up a little bit, but it's made out of Lester Maddox, and it's the crew of the Apollo 17 moon landing. Now this is February 1973, and it's signed by the crew of the Apollo 17. Now the Apollo 17 was the last time that man set foot on the moon. So another thing that they found was they found some financials for the creation of Paramount Films. Paramount Films, which was in the time of Gone with the Wind. And then another thing that they found, and Kevin showed this to me, was a picture of Ronald Reagan that was signed by Ronald Reagan, and it was Ronald Reagan. I'm not sure if you can see that, the sun glare might be up there, but it was Ronald Reagan shaking Donald Trump's hand. And after they got done with the estate sale, Kevin showed me the picture. And when I saw the picture, I started kind of like, I was like, that's so cool, man. That's a really good find. He picked it up for, pennies for what it was worth. And I looked at the picture for a little bit, and I said, dude, the only way we can make this picture more valuable is if Donald Trump signs it. And then and he agreed with me. And then I started laughing, hysterically, and I said, then the only way we could make it even more valuable after that is if Donald Trump becomes president. So when you get him to sign this picture, and this is a photocopy, this isn't the original, because I don't actually own the original, that's Kevin's, and who knows where he's got it. And I started laughing. I said, the only way we could make it more valuable is if Donald Trump becomes president. So when you get him to sign it, you need to tell him to run for president. And Kevin looked at me and just like scoffed and was like, he'll never win. And this was back in 2003 when Lester Maddox passed away at his estate sale, after his estate sale. And I looked at Kevin and I said, yeah, Donald Trump will win, because in 2006, 2007 is the second wave of the baby boomers migration patterns. And so like when a person gets to a certain age, they migrate out from their family home to their retirement home. And that was actually one of the things that precipitated the housing crisis of 2006, 2007, 2008, which also then in turn created the banking crisis and the largest bailout in history for AIG and a number of the banks. And that's a really interesting story in of itself. But when that migration began, there's a difference in the liberal mindset as opposed to the conservative mindset when they migrate to their retirement homes. The liberal mindset will congeal around cultural centers and art colleges and things like that nature. So like they actually move into like a tight grouping, whereas conservative mindset, the rural mindset, they spread out across the electoral college board. So what it does is at times like that, it gives more weight to the rural conservative voice in the electoral college. And Donald Trump, throughout his life, his media image was always socially liberal yet fiscally conservative. Now, conservatives might gripe about the socially liberal part, but the only part that they really care about is the fiscally conservative part, because that actually has a lot more, it's more important, because when you look into a lot of conservative families, they're going to have like massively socially liberal kids. So that's kind of like one of the things that they kind of like skirt. It's not really a big issue for them. So they vote on the fiscally conservative spot. So that would give Donald Trump the electoral college between the time frame of 2007 and 2023, because 2023 is when the baby boomers age out of the voting block, and then the millennials take over the ability to elect presidents. And that's there's a lot of interesting mathematics that goes into that. So I told Kevin that, Trump's going to win because this migration pattern is going to give him the electoral college. And then Kevin, he was like, I could see that. And so in 2007, Trump was having a book signing up in Tennessee. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. So when I was telling Kevin all this stuff, and he was showing me these treasures that he found in Lester Maddox estate sale, I've always been an extremely avid reader, and I was reading a book by Wilhelm Reich at that time, and I gave him that book to give to Trump, because I said when you get him to sign it, Trump will need to know how to play his base, and this book is essentially about how to play that psychological character structure that is representative of a lot of the conservative voices out there. And so I gave that to him, and Kevin told me, he's like, I'm not giving him that book. And I was like, well, look, when you get him to sign it, just set it down, either set it down on the table and walk away, and like one of Trump's employees will be like, Mr. Trump, you left your book on the table, or Trump will look over and be interested in it, because it's a very, very interesting book. It was written by a extremely famous psychologist who was part of Freud's inner circle back in Vienna, and his name's Wilhelm Reich. Pretty interesting stuff that guy wrote. So Kevin went up in 2007 to Tennessee to get Trump to sign one of his books, because one of Kevin's pastimes is he loves to go to authors and get them to sign the books, and he collects first edition books that are signed by the author. He had 3 of them by Gene Wilder that he sold just recently, and I was like, man, I wanted one of those. But so Kevin told me the story of when he went up to get Trump to sign the book and sign this picture, and he said he goes up to Trump. Trump's at the table signing books, and he asked Trump. He says, "Trump, have you ever thought about running for president?" And he said that Mr. Trump told him, "No, I would never get into that arena. It's far too corrupt and cutthroat." And so Trump signed his book, and then Kevin said to Trump, he said, "Mr. Trump," he's like, I have something else for you to sign. If you don't mind, I'll pay you the $40 for your signature if you'll sign it for me." And Trump's like, "Well, where is it?" And he goes, "Well, he says, "It's in the book." So Trump opens up his book that he just signed, and out comes the, this picture, signed by Ronald Reagan. And Kevin said Trump looked at it for, maybe, a couple seconds, and then signed it. And Kevin said to him, he said, "Are you sure you wouldn't run for president, Mr. Trump?" And Trump just kind of like scoffed a little bit. And then Kevin grabbed his book and started to walk away, and then turned back to Trump and said, "Mr. Trump, you should run for president." And he said, "You'll win." And Kevin's a really interesting character. He just wears like black and silver, jewelry, and he's got white or silver hair, kind of like Santa Claus. So kind of like one of those ones that will stick out in your mind. But so then we just kind of forgot about it. And when I was telling Kevin about the whole baby boomer migration pattern, I was really excited with the thought of Trump running for president, because I never wanted to see Hillary become president. Because I'm sorry, Mom, but Hillary reminds me too much of my mom. Now, my mom has wonderful characteristics, but some people just shouldn't have power, or that much power. And Hillary was one of those people that I would just, always kind of had there was always this very ominous, foreboding shadow over her with the logistics and the statistics behind everything that happened around the Clintons during their administrations. A lot of shady things that are just too beyond the realm of chance. There's too much of a cluster of things happening for there not to be some definite questions. Yeah, I'm here. So and the way my thoughts work is I tend to have just a huge spatter of thought immediately, kind of like a Jackson Pollock painting, and then I have to go back and trace those thoughts. So when I originally saw this picture, I thought, if Trump runs for president, he's going to be hard to research because his name is on so many different media. So to pull out any any type of negative stuff about Trump is going to be difficult because there's just such a large amount of material. Also, I thought that Trump would be seen kind of as a joke, so there wouldn't be any electoral rigging or anything done, and that would give him more of the ability to obtain the office the first time he was running. Now, I originally was hoping that he would run in 2008 because I thought that after the Bush administration, then they would put the Clintons back in, but Obama came in, and then so I think Trump might have run in 2008 had Hillary been there, because of the whole the JFK Jr. plane going down and everything, which was just so ridiculously suspicious. And who knows what the media's game is, but or if any of that stuff really happened, or if it's just a story being told. I mean, I have no idea. All I know is what I experienced personally, and growing up in the family that I did, I take everything everybody tells me with a grain of salt until I have like some actual proof that something happened or something didn't happen. Because I've been told many stories which later come to find out weren't necessarily true, and so Hillary didn't run until 2016. I had forgotten all of this stuff even happened until right around Trump, getting elected, and Kevin brought out this picture again, and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. And my Aunt Weeder was really wanting to see Trump come in. So there's a couple other things, but like once Trump got elected, I watched the progression of events and the reaction to him. And there's some other important things that happened because Trump got elected, but those things don't have anything to do with Trump himself. It's just some plans that were put into place much earlier. And he created a reaction pattern in the political social body that is, and also the financial social body that is completely mappable with information technology these days, and then also in the past, actually after World War II. But that's a completely different story, and I'll tell that a little bit later. But it's probably the most important story of our century, and it's not top secret because it's something that the CIA and the intelligence agencies, for the most part, had no clue that this actually happened back in the early 50s. And I'll tell that story later, because I feel like I've talked so much and the sun is really kind of beating down, and it's going to be a while for my sweet potatoes are done. So I think I'm just going to get a swig of water. Oh yeah, and that thing I was talking about also has to do with the CENTCOM satellites and the Nimbus satellites as well, and Alan Turing. So, where was I? Yeah, so I got to watch everything that Trump was doing, the technologies he declassified, and some of these technologies he declassified, so much happened in those 4 years that Trump was president. It was the first time in my life that I actually had a president that I liked, enjoyed, had respect for, and who did things actually for the people instead of what seemed to me prior to like a closeted little group of individuals who are working for their own benefit and their own benefit alone at the expense of not just the American people, but people all across the world. And when Trump got in, that created a pause